Hey guys, recently one of my subscribers commented about Pope Francis appointing a pro-abortion professor to the Pontifical Academy for Life, and she thought this was very alarming. You know, my wife says, she calls my show Seinfeld because every video is either someone reaching out to me on comments or an email, or something that happens in my life with my kids or a coworker. So it's not like I plan out. I don't plan these videos out. I just roll with the punches. And if you're not familiar with Seinfeld, Seinfeld was a show about nothing. It was very brilliantly scripted comedy, in my humble opinion. So Jerry Seinfeld just wrote about this apartment building in New York City and the characters that lived by him. And, I grew up in an apartment building in New Jersey. And if I had the great comedic mind as Seinfeld, I could probably make a funny show about just life growing up in the inner city with characters in my apartment building. So I get that. So anyway, this is Seinfeld. Not as funny, but we get some laughs and jokes in here when I can. But so what's going on now? One of my subscribers, and I even told her, I waited a couple of days. She said, she was really concerned. So I started praying, and this might sound goofy to her, but I said, I'm praying about this woman, and I took it as word, and what you're saying is true. I didn't even research it yet because, some subscribers I'm not familiar with. So if they tell me something, I'll have to look it up. But some subscribers are always on point, and they're, I know them, just by name. Her name happened to be Therese. So I know you guys by name, and I'm familiar where you're coming from. Some of you guys disagree with me. Some of you guys agree with me. Some of you guys sometimes agree with me, sometimes don't. And we're like one big family. You never always get along. So I responded to Therese, and like I said, this might sound goofy, but I'm praying for this woman who, her name is, she's Professor Mariano Mazzucato. For some reason, Joel Walsh's song, My Mazzucato Does 185, keeps running through my head when I hear her name. But no, in all seriousness, people are really upset about this. So at first I didn't address it, and I'm going to share why. But then, the usual suspects' heads exploded on YouTube, and they got tons of views. But then some really serious people that I respect on YouTube showed their concern. So I figured, let me address this and just give you my point of view. But I responded to Therese. Yeah, I just took you at your word, and I started praying for this woman. And call me crazy. This might sound weird or strange, but I think this woman's going to be converted. And it's not a prophecy. It's not, I've never had the gift of prophecy. I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying I had a feeling, I'm praying for this woman, and I don't know why. Just the thought came to my mind, Rob, just keep praying for her. This woman's going to be converted. So, God does a conversion. So I'm just saying I felt that. So if you're watching this, Therese, if I was a professional YouTuber, I probably wouldn't say stuff like that, but I'm just a friend, just a blue collar guy talking to you like I talk to my family and friends. That's what I would have said to my buddy at church if he asked me to pray for her. But so she was right. Like I said, I knew she'd be on point, but I wanted to learn more about this woman. She's a economics professor, pretty impressive PhD in economics. She is pro-abortion based. She didn't write any books on abortion. There's nothing like professional I could find on her. Like, she's pro-abortion. Like, that's not her field. Her field is economics. But in her personal life, she tweeted that she thought the Roe v. Wade decision was a bad decision. And then, if you guys know me, I watch as many liberal shows and read as many liberal publications as I do conservative, because I want to see what the enemy has to say so I can defend it. Like Thomas Aquinas says, you have to know your opponent's best argument to defeat him. So there's one woman I'm very familiar with, Casperina. She's on Young Turks, Anna Casperino. And if you've never seen her, I would say she's probably the third angriest person on TV that I've seen recently. She probably yells the third, angry yellers. I would say Joe Biden is the angriest, who yells the most at us. But if you've seen the Marco Rubio Val Demings debate that took place down here in Florida, Val Demings was at a close second for being the angriest Democrat that likes to yell at people. And the whole debate, she did was yell at Marco Rubio, but in classic Rubio style, he calmly just hit her with the facts. And that's the one thing liberals hate, are facts. Everything is emotion. Get angry. And he just kept hitting her with the facts. And that's why he's going to crush her in 2 weeks in the election. But that being aside, Anna Casparino was angry, yelling about Christians, putting their religion into this political debate about abortion. And this new appointee, Professor Mazzucato, just like agreed, like gave it a thumbs up, or said, really good. I totally, basically agreed with what this liberal was saying about abortion. So there's no doubt she's pro-abortion, and she's on, and Pope Francis appoints these people. He appoints them to a 5-year, it's a 5-year appointment, and she's appointed. He's the one that appointed her. So I'll tell you in a minute why I'm not, my head didn't explode like people, expected me. And I'll tell you also, number one, she's pro-abortion. So why would he appoint a pro-abortion person on the Pontifical for Life Academy? Sounds like a pro-life academy where you're talking about unborn children. That's just part of it. Life, that he has top economists, doctors, scientists. What these people do is they just come together. All these brainiacs and eggheads come together and kind of like have a committee or a conference discussing how they can improve the lives of people. That's it. And it has no authority. Nothing they say is authoritative. Nothing they say is official teaching of the church. They're just like I would call an advisory committee. And they advise the Vatican they do research, and they say, this is what we find. This is what we find could improve people's lives. This is what we can protect people's lives. Now, you think, yeah, but if she's pro-abortion, she's going to have a different worldview. Like, if Stacey Abrams, for example, running for Georgia governor, and she's another whack job that's going to lose big time. But she was on like a mainstream media news show and said, the way we can help inflation is by increasing abortions. I'm paraphrasing. But she said the problem with inflation is people having children. So abortion, banning abortion is going to make inflation worse. First of all, economically, that's ridiculous. And morally, that's reprehensible. So one of the many reasons she'll be crushed in 2 weeks. And, I put a prediction. I'm going to digress just a little bit into politics. I put a prediction. The Republicans are going to win the Senate 53-47, in the House 435-190. And I would also like to add to that, there are going to be some big surprises in governorships. Georgia isn't going to be a surprise. Florida isn't going to be a surprise. I think people are going to be surprised when a Republican wins New York, Oregon, Michigan, and Arizona. So, again, it's not a prophecy. It's just a prediction based on my experience watching elections since I'm about 14. And I'll be 57 tomorrow. So, hoorah. But anyhow, getting back to the topic. If she said something stupid like that, the Academy, in their bylaws, can revoke her membership, can kick her out. They can kick her out. It's not like the Supreme Court, they're on for life. They have a 5-year membership, but within that time, if they say something in that position that goes against the teaching of the church, their membership will be revoked and they'll be kicked out. Now, it says nothing about saying stuff before or after. So, I guess those tweets didn't disqualify her. Now, I would never judge Pope Francis's intentions, I don't think we should judge any man's intention. Only God knows our hearts. But actually, I've came in and been a big supporter of Pope Francis because I've been watching this guy when I was a Protestant evangelical, and he was instrumental with other guys like Dr. Kreeft and Steve Ray and Dr. Scott Hahn bringing me back home to the Catholic Church. But I've watched them over the years, and I've seen them be misrepresented, and I believe his intentions are good. And on abortion, I've heard him say, abortion is the gravest of mortal sins. You know, he told the church, abortion is the gravest of mortal sins. He told atheist mainstream news, hiring an abortionist is like hiring a hitman. And we know he told hitmen in Italy that if they don't repent, they're in jeopardy of going to hell. So, you know, this is what he's telling these doctors and these people that are having abortions. And he's also told the mainstream media, science is clear. Abortion is killing an innocent baby. So there's no doubt his intention is to save babies, that he is pro-life. There's no doubt that. But could his judgment be wrong? Could his judgment be wrong? Well, I looked up this woman, and like I said, she's got a PhD in economics. She's written several books, nothing about abortion, nothing about religion. All she sticks to her field of economics, you know. And there was one book, I obviously didn't read any of her books, but one of the titles, I read the summary, and I was like, wow, it's pretty interesting. She said that corporations make a big mistake hiring all these consultant firms, and they pay them all kinds of money, and they give them bad information. And I've experienced that on the ground, you know, where, you know, I worked for Tropicana Juice, delivering the juice, and was part of PepsiCo, the company, and they had all these, hired this consultant firm and said it would be better to put it on Pepsi trucks. You know, you'd have one truck delivering everything. And I asked the data analysts and the consultants, have you ever been on a truck and made a delivery? Have you ever walked into a store and talked to a store owner and tried to sell them your product? No, of course. And I told them all the pitfalls. You know, our product has to be chilled. Our product can't be put in backstock. It has to go up on the shelves. Long story short, Pepsi lost, I think it was like $20 million on Tropicana Juice sales the first year, and they eventually sold it to some French company. Same thing, my son, hotshot salesman right out of high school, selling gym memberships, like broke records. Now I sell Bang Energy drinks to gyms, and I go into gyms and I mention his name, like, wow, your son's legendary. Now he sells timeshares, but when he was younger, he sold gym memberships. And they hired this big chain, hired this big consultant firm, paid him like $1 million. And he said the stuff the guy was telling them to do was ridiculous. And sure enough, sales went down because they were required to follow this advice, and they fired the consultant firm after they just wasted all the money. So on that aspect, this woman is right. You know, don't waste your money on consultant fees. Ask the guys on the ground. Just like the Pentagon needs to ask the soldiers in the field, like I had Dale Comstock, the former Delta Force guys, would say that officers were so disconnected in Washington to what was happening in the field. Same thing in business. So I'm digressing a little bit, but I want to make a point. Maybe this was his judgment. She thinks outside the box. And one thing about Pope Francis, he thinks outside the box. And she had another book where she wrote basically saying socialism is wrong and unbridled capitalism is wrong. Why both extremes aren't going to help people. You know, there's like a middle ground. And I've heard Pope Francis criticize socialism, and I've heard Pope Francis criticize capitalism. I've heard capitalists criticize Pope Francis, and I've heard socialists criticize Pope Francis. So my guess is he sees her as a different voice with a great economic mind and could add to the debate or add to the problem solving. You know, you don't want 10 people that agree. You want 10 people that disagree, throw in their ideas. And again, she's bringing the specialties of economics. If I was going to have brain surgery, and I had a pastor or a priest that was a devout Christian who loved the Lord, and I had a friend who was an atheist brain surgeon, and I had to ask advice of what to do, for the brain surgery, I would ask the surgeon, even though he was an atheist. But anything spiritual, anything that had to do with abortion, I wouldn't even talk to him about it. I would talk to the priest. So I can get that. I mean, like I said, if she says something ridiculous, like, you know, to help the economy, we have to have more abortions. we can throw her off. They can throw her off. And anything she says isn't authoritative anyway. It's not official. It's just advice. So to me, I didn't think it was a big deal. And I still don't think it's a big deal. And I'm praying for her conversion. And I would ask you to pray for her as well. If you don't remember her name, remember the Joe Walsh song, My Maserati Does 185. And pray for her. But anyhow, why didn't I say things at first? Because when I became a Catholic, the main difference, I for years I studied Catholic doctrines and seen, yes, they are more biblical than the Protestant doctrine. I studied how the church worshiped today and said, yes, is identical to how they worshiped in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century. I became Catholic because I believed it was the church that Jesus Christ established and protected for all eternity. It's the same church. But one of the things that kept me was I knew I would have to submit to the authority of the church. And one thing that Martin Luther instilled in the Protestants and ex-Protestants like me is we don't submit to anybody's authority but the Bible. No man has authority over us. It was something I had to be humble. I had to humble myself and submit to the authority of the church. I had to believe that Jesus Christ gave us a church and we were commanded to submit to their authority. And that would be the Pope and the magisterium and my local parish priest. And that's what I did. And when I read, this is official. Like I said, what this girl, whatever this woman says, this professor says, is not official teaching of the church. It's just advice she's given to the Pope. But this is the Code of Canon Law. This is official stuff. Canon 1404 says this: the first see is judged by no one. First see is the Pope. So, I mean, I'm not going to judge his intentions. I'm not even going to judge his judgment, because the first see is judged by no one. And I can't help but getting upset. Now there's, like I said, I've seen some good, reasonable Catholics upset about this, but I didn't hear them attack the Pope like the usual suspect Taylor does. And I'm bringing this out, and I never name names except for Taylor. If you notice, I've had people that disagree with me about Pope Francis, several on my show. But I never bring those names up because they never attack the man. They attack what they think is bad judgment on his part and change, what they think is his teachings. But Taylor is always attacking the man. He calls Pope Francis, you don't even call him Pope Francis, totally disrespects the man, calls him Francis, or Francis the Destroyer, or Francis the Heretic. And he calls excommunicate men like the dude Lefebvre a saint. And he calls our Pope a heretic. So from now on, I'm going to refer to him as Taylor the Destroyer, because he destroys lives. And I know this for a fact, because Catholic for Redneck and I are friends, because he reached out to me in an email because he was on the edge about to leave the Catholic Church from binge watching Taylor the Destroyer. And he said he listened to me and he got mad at me. He said I was always angry. Me and my friends that watch Taylor were always angry. And if you watch Taylor, he's always angry. And he brings guys that are always angry. They have no joy of the Lord. They're just angry. Angry men. And so Taylor the Destroyer was leading him out of the church. And he said he watched a couple of my videos defending Pope Francis and he was mad. But he knew I was right. And it wasn't just me. He mentioned some other guys that helped him and brought him back into the church. He was about to leave Catholicism. And I told him, I've had people tell me they left because of Taylor and they came back by the grace of God. And he sends me texts from people he gets. And we've been friends now for a few months, or maybe a year, like where we really, text and talk on the phone. And he's probably sent me a half a dozen texts from guys that left the church. And he said, all these guys were Taylor the Destroyer followers. So this is why I bring up this guy's name, to warn you. I don't know why he does it, if he really believes what he does, but I researched the guy, and the guy is filthy rich. He lives in like a $2 million mansion. He's filthy rich. So I don't know if he does it because he's a charlatan and he does it for money, or if he really believes in his heart, like Martin Luther really believed. And that's probably he's more like Martin Luther, thinks he's going to reform the church. He says, don't leave the church, let's reform it. Well, he's not a reformer. He's not a priest, he's not a bishop. Who is he to judge the first see? And The Code of Canon Law warns of guys like this. And this specifically talks about Taylor the Destroyer. Canon 1373. One who publicly either stirs up hostilities or hatreds among subjects against the apostolic see, the Pope, or against an ordinary on account of some act of ecclesiastic power or ministry. So something they do in the church, they're stirring up hatred, or incite subjects to disobey, them is to be punished by interdict or by other just penalties. They're talking about Taylor the Destroyer right there. So whenever I bring up his name, I lose subscribers. I get the angriest, vile hate mail. I'm like, these guys are Christians? How do you even call yourself a Catholic when you curse at me and insult me like you do? They're just full of anger. And I asked Catholic for Rednecks. I'm like, I've never met these people. Why are they so angry? He said, they're all angry, Rob. So I'll lose subscribers and I'll never get as big as he does because people like controversy. People like, fire throwers. And you know what? I don't care because I work for a living. I am a blue-collar Catholic. I will go to work tomorrow morning and put in 14 hours by the grace of God. But I know that I'm submitting to Jesus Christ and the church that he gave us. So God bless, stay Catholic, and don't let anyone steal your joy.